One of the most important things when making silage is to cut at the correct cutting height. This avoids soil contamination of the grass and helps to improve silage quality when it is brought in either into the silage pit or into the bale. Soil contaminates the grass and it causes a poor fermentation, whether that's in a silage clamp or a bale. So if you have a good quality sward with a very thick base, you can cut at 2 inches. If it is more open or a crop like red clover, you need to go to a 4-inch cutting height. The next most important step after mowing is raking. And we need to make sure that the rake is set correctly so that we're not, again, causing soil contamination of the grass prior to ensiling. So firstly, we should check that when the rake is going round, it is not scraping the surface. The final check is when that rake is going around the field for the first time, that you watch it and you check for clouds of dust flying off the rake as it goes around the field to ensure you have set it correctly and you're not getting additional soil contamination in the field. When we're baling, one of the most important things is to get a nice square edge on that round bale so that you're not trapping oxygen within the bale when you're wrapping it. And to do that, we need to focus on the shape of the swath when we're rowing up so that it's a box-shaped swath and that we're baling evenly as we're coming up the field. Then we need to use net wrap that comes right to the edge of that bale, if not just slightly over the edge, to ensure that we're not getting grass poking up and causing problems with shoulders on the bale. And by reducing those shoulders on the bale and getting that square edge, we're actually improving our silage quality because we're reducing the risks of moulds and listeria within that silage that can cause problems and losses during feed out. When we set up the wrapper, we need to make sure that we spend a little bit of time at the beginning of the season checking that it's done correctly. So firstly, we need to clean off the rollers because tack builds up on that over time, and we need to recut those rollers to ensure that we get the correct amount of stretch if required. Then we put a bale, the first bale, on the wrapper, and we count the number of revolutions it takes for that bale to turn from green grass so that we can't see it, and then we add 1 revolution and we multiply that by 2 to get 4 layers of wrap, or multiply that number of revolutions by 3 to get 6 layers of wrap. And it's important to do this because different balers with different wrappers have different numbers of revolutions required to get that correct coverage so that we've got an equal and even wrap of 4 to 6 layers on that bale during storage. When we're filling the silage clamp, first thing is to prepare the silage clamp, make sure it's nice and clean before you start filling. And then secondly, to put a side sheet, as you can see here, right the way from the base of that wall up to the top of the clamp. This is important to ensure that we get a good oxygen barrier, even up that side wall. And then when you start filling, it's a good idea to slope the side filling slightly away from the walls, because the sides are one place where we get a lot of wastage, and if we can get better compaction up against that side wall, we'll reduce our wastage. The next key thing to remember is even compaction. So with a dry crop, a maximum of 6 inches. If it's your average crop, 9 inches. And then if it's a particularly wet crop, then a foot. And we bring that in even layers and roll it as we go. And that way we remove the oxygen and we get good solid compaction. If we're caught out by the weather, or we have to stop overnight. It's important, as you can see here, to bring a top sheet on, and that enables the fermentation to start, and you can put a few tyres just to hold that sheet in place, and that will improve that silage quality in that lower part of the silage clamp. After that process, you need to make sure you go on with a foot and you don't roll that silage that has already started to ferment. Bring that grass in and continue as you go, compacting with time. Then finally, when it comes to sealing the clamp, we need to seal it as quickly as possible after we've finished filling. Bring the side sheets down and make sure we have at least a 3-metre overlap between the side sheets and the top sheet. And finally, we need to make sure there's sufficient top weight on this. You need to use tyres that are touching and make sure that that top weight keeps the weight on to make sure oxygen doesn't get back in.